hims.com/lockedon. Bulk, can tonight's game reignite the Cavs-Warriors rivalry, or does a November regular season game not have that much significance?
I would say probably not, but I'll give one caveat. The one way that the rivalry could really get stoked again tonight is if
punches somebody in the nuts?
Essentially, yes. It's exactly what I was going to say. If Draymond does something... No,
I didn't mean to steal your punchline.
Yeah, you're thinking alike. If Draymond does something crazy, like, let's say he got into it with Evan Mobley or whatever, he's the only one. Like, nothing Steph's going to do is going to spark the rivalry. It's regular season. But if Draymond does some crazy antics, that could get people kind of crazy again. I think that could stoke up the rivalry to some degree. It's never going to be like it was.
No.
But there'll be remnants of it if Draymond does something else.
They'll just hate them. You'll just like Draymond is so recognizable and hateable that like people will just hate on him. Just they won't hate the rest of the squad. They'll be like Draymond. It's just Draymond being hateable. Like I don't think the rivalry coming back because honestly I just don't think Golden State is good enough to win a championship. So like back when the rivalry was heated, Golden State, I'm not gonna lie, they had the best team I've ever seen assembled. When Golden State got Durant, it was a wrap. It was a wrap. Like it was like, and I saw LeBron play one of the best games I've seen an individual ever play when he got 51, and they reversed the charge call on Durant. He goes in, breaks his hand, they end up getting swept. But that team, think about it. They already won the most games of all time, and they got Durant. They was just pulling up on everybody, Blue. They was just, and Steph had the mouthpiece, and Durant became like Anakin Walker. Like he just like Anakin Skywalker. You're like, you were the chosen one. You were supposed to bring down the Sith, and you just joined them. Yeah, it was crazy. They had all the storylines too.
To that point, this is a little bit off topic. The Players Association totally screwed Cleveland, and nobody ever like talks about it. Realize it. They were trying to smooth the cap, which means incrementally, because they got that big injection of money and the cap spiked, and that's the whole reason the Warriors were able to fit Durant in. The league was trying to smooth it and just gradually rise it, and had they been able to do that, the Warriors would not have been able to fit Kevin. But the Players Association fought against it. The cap spiked, and Kevin comes in, and it cost the Cavs another championship. Cavs would have won at least one more championship without Kevin Durant.
I always wonder if LeBron can get, if they didn't trade him and say, let me talk to Kyrie. If he could have talked to Kyrie.
He did it too late.
Would they have won more championships? How do you think that played out?
I believe they would have won in 2018 with Kyrie. Because I was talking to guys in the locker room who felt like, I've talked about this before, I think. The Warriors were fragile that last year. And I had a conversation with Bob Myers, and Bob said, like, this is not going to last as long as everyone thinks it will. Like, this will come to an end. And he was right. They had one more year after that. And the Cavs just felt like the Warriors were vulnerable. It was not the same team as 2017. There was a lot more like sort of bickering within them and a lot more of a power struggle between KD and Steph and all that. Kevin never really fit their culture. He was just an incredible player.
It was KD and Steph? I thought it was KD and Draymond.
Well, that's probably – I'm going back 6 years. It was just a lot of
infighting.
Big personalities.
Yeah, right.
And the Cavs just felt like the Warriors were vulnerable and they were just one piece short. And now it sounds stupid to say they got swept. Right. But I've talked to a lot of people who felt like if the Cavs had one more piece, they could have won that 2018 title. Again, if they win game one and then the Warriors have to hear about it for 2 days, that whole series could have been different with one more piece.
And if do you believe that if Kyrie would have stayed, LeBron would have stayed, or he was always in LA?
Kyrie wanted out because he knew LeBron was.
So you already knew LeBron was already destined. He was going to LA no matter what.
I had people telling me prior. So the Cavs parade is June of 2016.
Yeah.
October of 2016, before the start of that next season, I had people saying LeBron's leaving to go into LA within the Cavs, saying he's going to go play with his friends in LA. Now, the go play with his friends part was not accurate, but the go play in LA was 100. So the Cavs knew that whole season was going to be his. That's the 17-18 season was going to be his last year. And that's why they made the moves that they did, because and my whole argument was always, I don't care if he's leaving. You got the best player in the world. Go all in to win while he's here.
Right.
But they knew he was leaving, and Kyrie knew he was leaving, and Kyrie wanted to get out, and LeBron just waited too late. So Kyrie's trade demand comes out. I was on the beach on vacation when Windhurst tweeted that. I'm like, well, that's the end of my vacation. I'll walk right up to the room and got right back to work. But they lost my train of thought.
LeBron talking
You were
about
on the beach. You decided to actually work.
Yeah.
Shut up. That's back when I worked all the time. And LeBron just waited too late. And LeBron had all that summer to pick up the phone and try and fix this, and he didn't. And then the Cavs reached out and told him they would trade him to Boston, and LeBron said, don't do it. Bring him back. I can fix this. And it was too late. The trade was already
So the question is,
agreed to.
If Kyrie knew LeBron was already going to roll out, why didn't Kyrie ever think of it like, I was the number one pick here. I'm the one who hit the shot. I'm younger than you. I could prove here that it wasn't you.
And that's what was frustrating, I believe, to a lot of the Cavs personnel that was here at the time, was exactly that. Like, stay here. Let's make another run at a championship. And then if you want out, we'll trade you. Or if you want to stay and build around you, then we'll do that. But I'm telling you, I caught so much heat for this. But early in his career, I had people very close to, in his camp, I know people hate that word, but it very much exists, telling me if the Cavs weren't going to take winning seriously, they were going to have to get him out of Cleveland. And that was in like year 2, his second year in the league. So there was always this notion that Kyrie was not long for Cleveland. But then he signed the max extension. Yeah. Everyone said I was making it up. I'm like, okay, fine, I was making it up.
Because it was a perfect opportunity to do the Kobe and Shaq thing. LeBron, they moved Shaq to Miami. Kobe stayed. They built around Kobe. Got it back again. Was it a thing where it just felt like Kyrie just felt like since LeBron was entrenched here, he was from here, he would never get that level of credit?
It was more like he felt like that team was built around LeBron and not him. It was built to LeBron's skill set and not his. It was a team of shooters, and the pieces fit around LeBron more than Kyrie, and Kyrie didn't want to get stuck holding the bag when LeBron left. Mm-hmm. I think the timing on it was awful. I would have loved, and like the whole thing, he was threatening to have surgery. That's true, he was. And my point was, let him have the surgery. He'll be back in March.
Yep.
March. That's all you need him for is April, May, and June. But I think Kyrie has grown up. I know you hate him, but Kyrie's grown up a lot since then. I think he's matured a lot. I think probably if he had it to do differently, he probably would have handled that whole situation differently. He was incredibly immature. Yeah. When he would teammates would tell me he would just walk in and not talk to anyone for 3 days. Wouldn't talk to anybody.
Weird.
And everyone just like, okay, it's one of those days, and they would just ignore him.
What a different group the Cavs have now in terms of personality.
Completely different. And that was actually a fun group to cover.
Right.
Yes.
Like Channing was great, RJ was great, LeBron was great. Kyrie and Shump were like off in their corner, and they're each other's buddies and kind of kept themselves. Deli never said anything, but he was a good guy. He was,
He had the Mozgovs.
Didn't Kevin Love, sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Kevin Love, wasn't he good in the beginning and then he became kind of a sourpuss?
No, the other way.
Oh, it was the other way.
He was, for our purposes, he was tough to deal with early. He didn't trust anyone. He felt like he got burned in Minnesota. And actually I shouldn't say it. By national. He felt like he got burned by a very prominent NBA national reporter who no longer covers the NBA. And so he was guarded. And I always felt like the championship lifted a burden off him. He was a completely different dude. Same with LeBron. Right. LeBron was totally different with us after the title than he was prior to. But Kevin totally transformed. And then he was much more at ease and relaxed, I think, after winning that title.
That's why. So when you say, can the rivalry get to where you're going? We just sat here and talked for, 10 minutes about the storylines involving two teams. That's what makes the rivalry. There's the explosion of Draymond and Kevin Durant on the bench and Klay Thompson getting injured and the injuries with them and it's Steph's team, and you got the whole thing with the Cavs and in midst of that they trade for Dwayne Wade, and he was like, that's the worst thing that ever happened in my life coming here. What's the other guy they had that came from he played for the Suns a little bit. Suns, and he went to the
Sean
Bucks.
Marion?
No, Suns. Then he played for the Milwaukee Bucks. Jay Crowder.
Oh,
So Crowder, Derrick Rose.
What's his name for the Jazz, or was that after?
That was after
Rodney
that.
Hood.
Rodney Hood.
Yeah.
So all them dudes that they brought in, that was a whole nother thing. Like D-Rose, and all of them say it's the worst thing that they were like.
Jeff Green.
Yeah.
But again, that was the year when they knew LeBron was leaving.
Yeah.
And Dan, the first time when LeBron left, Dan was never about plan B. He always thought plan B took away from plan A. You focus on plan A. There's no such thing as plan B. So the first time LeBron was here, it was always about plan A. The second time, Dan very much felt like, you're not going to do this to me again. We're going to have a backup plan. And that's why you saw them try and get younger while still going to the finals. And that's why you saw Rodney Hood.
Isaiah Thomas.
But they blew it. They did it the wrong way.
Larry Nance. And they were trying to like sort of retool. That's why they traded Kyrie for a draft pick. That's what blew my mind, was why would you trade for an unprotected draft pick when you have LeBron here? But the draft pick was the big piece of that trade because, again, Dan felt like, we're not going to be left holding the bag. We're going to have something in place if you decide to go. Now, in the end, it all worked out. They drafted Colin Sexton, which he was never the player they were trying to make him out to be.
But it got him Donovan Mitchell.
So it all came out in the wash.
Yeah.
It all worked out in the end. And now here's where they are today. But to the point about rivalries, they've never really, other than the Warriors during the championship run because of obvious reasons, they've never really had a rival in the East.
Bulls during.
Well, I mean,
Doherty.
I'm going but I'm going back to like from the LeBron years.
Yes.
On,
Because
they just dominated everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
So they were like, you think the Bucks or not the Bucks, the Hawks or the Raptors were a rival?
A little bit of rivalry with Boston, maybe.
Early on, when the Pistons were because he couldn't
Kelly
get past
Olynyk.
the
When Kelly Olynyk yanked Kevin Love's shoulder for about a week or two, there was a rival.
Kelly Olynyk still in the NBA?
Yeah,
he's on the Raptors.
But that was like the early version of Boston. They could not hang. Now, 2018
they should have won.
Was
that.
a great series.
Yeah.
But like 15, 16, 17, Boston wasn't good enough to hang with the Cavs. And Toronto just got smacked They never really had a rival other than the Warriors. There was no great rivalry.
And that's why we started fast forwarding the regular season, and
That's right.
all we cared about was the two games that they played. Golden State. It was wild.